Thank you, Jennifer. Before I get started, I wanted to take a moment to thank some of our special guests that are here. We all have bosses, and I actually have a lot of bosses, and so I'm going to start naming them off. The first is the president of OU, President Joseph Harris. We also have Dr. Rick Lofgren, who's OU Health inaugural CEO and president. We have Dr. Gary Raskoff, our interim senior vice president and provost of the University of Oklahoma Health Science Center. Dr. John Zubialdi, who is the executive dean of the OU College of Medicine. We also have Dr. Mary Beth Humphreys, the interim vice president for research for the OU Health Sciences Center, and several distinguished deans from our Health Science Center campus, including Dean Julie Hoff for the Fran and Earl Ziegler College of Nursing, and Dean Jane Wilson from Allied Health. We have other partners that have made this journey possible, and Rick McCune from the Presbyterian Health Foundation is with us, as well as Randy Dowell, who's CEO of the University Hospital Authority and Trust. With that out of the way, I want to talk a little bit about something I'm very passionate about. And it's the collaboration between academic and clinical institutions, which is the key to advancing healthcare resources and options for our patients. OU Health Science Center, whose leadership we have mentioned, and OU Health, who's also here, work together to bring a great range of the latest generation of therapies and research-driven trials right here to Oklahoma. You know, as a researcher, I can't advance the knowledge of how to fight cancer without a good clinical system. So this partnership is critical for us to allow our patients access to world-class care right here, close to home. We don't need to travel to other states to have innovative cancer care. It's available here at the Stephenson Cancer Center. And it's available in an environment where we have the emotional and mental and physical support of the families and caregivers for the patients undergoing this journey. You know, cancer takes a toll on our citizens in numerous ways. Sure, there's loss of life. 35% of patients who get a cancer diagnosis still die of their disease, but even beyond that, there's a loss of productivity and there's survivorship issues because of the toxicity of some of the cancer treatment, these long-term effects. And what we're going to talk about today is a new drug that's looking to address some of those problems. Research, it holds the key to ensuring more patients have safe and effective therapies and the highest possible quality of life. I'm proud to say the Stephenson Cancer Center is a national leader in research trials. We're one of only 32 NCI-designated lead academic participating sites. These are the sites at major cancer centers throughout the nation that work with the National Cancer Institute and the largest clinical trials infrastructure in the world dealing with cancer. And right here in Oklahoma, we're one of those centers. And recently, we were also allowed to join the NCI's very exclusive club of the Experimental Therapeutics Clinical Trials Network. And that's looking at very early and innovative drugs, and it's even a smaller cohort of institutions nationwide that participate in that program. Today, we are excited to announce the unveiling of a new cancer drug, aptly called OK1. It was created by Doris Benbrook, a professor in the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology at the OU College of Medicine. This drug has now received FDA approval to be tested in humans in a phase 1 clinical trial right here at OU Health Stephenson Cancer Center. On a side note, not giving away our age, Doris was one of my first recruits here to Oklahoma over 30 years ago, and was one of my best recruits ever. Doris is a phenomenal researcher, and you're going to hear more about that in a little bit. Now, this clinical trial will be run by another international leader in research, Dr. Kathleen Moore. She's the Associate Director for Clinical Research here and Director of the Oklahoma TSET Phase 1 program at the Stephenson Cancer Center. It was my privilege to also recruit Dr. Moore to join our Oklahoma team, and she is truly a national, internationally known leader in clinical trials. Now, it's really rare for a drug to be developed entirely within an academic institution without the aid of pharmaceutical support or venture capital. It's very difficult. A lot of times this is called the valley of death, where great ideas just can't get quite to the next level. But Dr. Benbrook, with her tenacity and her great ideas and ability to present those, has convinced multiple institutes to support this drug, predominantly the National Cancer Institute, and also help from the Presbyterian Health Foundation. She now has applications on several drug combinations of OK1, as it appears to be most effective when combining with other existing drugs. I'm going to turn the podium over for Dr. Benbrook and Dr. Moore to give you more details. Guys, we are incredibly proud of this accomplishment, and this is a landmark day for Oklahoma. This is the first time this conference could be happening in Oklahoma, because this is the first time this has ever happened in Oklahoma. Jennifer?
Thank you, Dr. Mantle. I'd like all of you to please join me in welcoming Dr. Doris Benbrook, professor in the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology at the University of Oklahoma College of Medicine.
Thank you for this opportunity to share our experience developing a new cancer drug made right here in Oklahoma. The goal of my career has been to develop new treatments for cancer patients. And one of the major issues facing cancer patients is the side effects caused by surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, even the new molecularly targeted agents. So about 25 years ago, I started a collaboration with a chemist at OSU, Darrell Berlin. And our goal was to develop drugs that can kill cancer cells without harming healthy cells or causing side effects. So we chose as our starting point vitamin A, because our bodies use vitamin A to make retinoic acid, a nutrient that supports healthy functioning. And so Dr. Berlin synthesized variations of vitamin A and gave them to me. And I studied how they affected cancer cells in comparison to how they affected healthy cells. And a collaborating pathologist, Stan Lightfoot, evaluated how they affected cancer tissue in comparison to healthy tissue. And I fed this information back to Dr. Berlin, who then synthesized additional variations of our compounds with the expectations that we were increasing the activity against cancer cells while reducing the toxicity to healthy cells. And through this process, we came up with OK1, which met our goal of being able to kill cancer cells without harming healthy cells. So in order to bring OK1 to clinical trial, we needed to complete two major objectives. The first was to understand how it worked. So because we changed the structure so much from retinoic acid, OK1 doesn't work like a retinoic acid. Instead, what it does is it combats the abnormal environment it creates in the body by growing out of control. So in normal cells, they can detect when they are abnormally growing out of control or causing an abnormal environment in the body, and then they undergo a natural form of cell suicide. And cancer cells can avoid that suicide by increasing chaperone proteins. And so this natural cell suicide is the way our bodies combat cancer. And yet cancer cells can bypass that with these chaperones that act like bodyguards to prevent the natural cell death. So in normal situations, a cell will elevate levels of the chaperone proteins when it experiences stress. And the chaperone proteins help to combat the natural cell suicide and allow the cell to survive until the stress is relieved. And then the chaperone proteins go back down to normal levels. However, cancer cells can evolve by keeping elevated levels of these chaperone proteins that keep them alive, and they become addicted and dependent on these chaperone proteins. And so that is how OK1 can kill cancer cells, is it attacks, it binds these chaperone proteins and blocks their bodyguard function, and this allows the cancer cells to undergo the natural form of cell suicide. And this is also how OK1 doesn't harm healthy cells, because healthy cells are not dependent on these chaperone proteins. So the next objective of what we needed to accomplish in order to bring OK1 to clinical trial was to complete the large amount of testing mandated by the FDA to allow clinical trials. And we were able to be awarded multiple multi-million-dollar grants and contracts from the National Cancer Institute to complete that testing. And a critical component of that testing was developing a capsule of the drug that patients could ingest, and that the drug would then diffuse into the body and make it to the cancer tumor site of action where it could have its effect. And so in our audience, we have Dr. Lucila Garcia-Contreras, a pharmaceutical scientist in the OU College of Pharmacy, who played a crucial role in developing this capsule formulation. A reason that we wanted to focus on a capsule formulation is that we felt it would be easier for a cancer patient to take a bottle of capsules home to administer the drug instead of having to come into the clinic and be poked and infused with toxic chemotherapy. And it also helps us transition to another one of our major goals, which is to prevent cancer with OK1. Our experimental models have shown that in addition to inhibiting cancer growth, OK1 can prevent the development of cancer. So we have planned ovarian cancer clinical trials with the National Cancer Institute's National Cancer Prevention Clinical Trial Network. So as we've gone through this process, we've gained a lot of experience. And we're now taking this experience to educate the next generation of researchers. And because the Stephenson Cancer Center is a matrix cancer center with the University of Oklahoma, one of our primary missions is education. And so we've developed curriculum. We've put together expertise across campus, developed curriculum, mentoring, and support for faculty and other researchers who've discovered something, be it a new drug, a medical device, or a clinical test that they want to apply into clinical practice. And so it takes much more than just publishing your research. We teach how to recruit and lead multidisciplinary teams, how to work with the FDA, how to identify obstacles to implementing your discovery into clinical practice, and then to devise strategies to overcome those obstacles. So as I've gone through this process and faced multiple obstacles, I've benefited greatly from the collaboration of Oklahoma experts and students and fellows who have worked on these projects, and the infrastructure at the Stephenson Cancer Center and University of Oklahoma. And we're taking this experience and using it to mentor the next generation of cancer researchers. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Benbrook. Our next guest will talk about this next important step in the drug development process. Dr. Kathleen Moore is the Associate Director of Clinical Research and Director of the Oklahoma TSET Phase 1 program here at the OU Health Stephenson Cancer Center. She will talk about the clinical trial that is now ready to begin for OK1.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. This is, I was just sitting here listening on the podium, and this is like the culmination of all the things I love. Clinical research, advancements, sitting next to one of my favorite patients, and pit bulls. So my morning has started off really well today. So it's really my pleasure to be here as AD of Clinical Research. It would be remiss of me to not start off and just say how proud I am of this institution and the amount of research that we do across all solid tumors and hematologic malignancies, Basically every researcher or every investigator here, every physician is involved in clinical research. And here, clinical research, access to cutting edge trials is the expectation, not the exception. And that benefits our patients. So I'm a GYN oncologist by training, although I oversee a lot of research outside of GYN oncologist. My home is in GYN oncology. And we've made a lot of strides in GYN oncology. It's actually an exciting time to be a GYN oncologist. We have women, despite no real change in incidence or mortality, women with ovarian cancer are living longer because of clinical research and because of the great benefits that have come from participation from many of the patients here at Stephenson. We've gotten drugs to market. We have drugs available here through clinical trials for endometrial, for cervix, that help women live longer lives. And I was reflecting back on my clinic yesterday. I saw 2 of these patients who were in like 6th and 7th line therapy on clinical trials that are finally working, and they feel better. But the flip side of that, and they'll tell you this if they were standing here, is that they're tired. Years of therapy takes a toll. They walk with a cane. They have had rashes. Their bone marrow is not the same that it used to be. Their GI systems don't work. There is cumulative toxicity from these drugs that's really important and impacts the subsequent lines of therapy that we can offer patients. So while we're trying to strive to bring new drugs to market, and we get all excited about this, we have to pay attention to the collateral damage, which is the side effects of these drugs. These drugs kind of rapidly figure out how to outsmart the cancer figures out how to outsmart the drug, and so we try to come at them with combinations which work better. Then the combinations are incredibly toxic, and we're living through some of those right now. So this opportunity with OK1, I know it is a different name, as said A2, but it's OK1 now, is sort of the holy grail for us. It's the beginning of a really exciting research enterprise. In preclinical models, and Dr. Benbrook very eloquently described that, we see efficacy, meaning it shrinks tumors in preclinical models. We hope it does in people as well, across tumor types. It does so with very little toxicity, and often we have a sense of the toxicity to expect when we test it in animals. We're like, ooh, I saw some lung damage, or I saw the platelets drop, or I saw eye toxicity, and that's what I'm going to watch for in the trial. We don't see that with this drug, and so we're expecting it to be very tolerable. We think it's going to be a drug that plays very well in the sandbox, we like to say, with other drugs that we're already using that work pretty well, not great, but pretty well. This drug may synergize with them and help those drugs work better and for longer and with not additive toxicity, so patients can have a longer period of time of benefit. So this really is the beginning of we have like this pipeline dream for OK1. This trial is the beginning. This is a phase 1 trial. This is sort of what I love to do, but I would also be remiss if I didn't say I had a big team who are all equally excited about this. This is where we move the drug with all its promise into people, volunteers, our patients, who basically are champions for clinical research, and they should always be the center of what we do, and we have to remember that. They're volunteering to take a brand new drug and see what happens. And that's what phase 1 trials are. We're watching, we started at a reasonable dose, and then we escalate the dose until we get to a point. Really for this drug, we're not expecting toxicity. We usually dose to toxicity. Here we're just dosing until Dr. Benbrook says we've seen enough activity on the target and we're ready to go into combinations. And so this is the beginning of a journey that I think will bring OK1 really into the forefront of quite a few of our gynecologic cancers, and honestly maybe even beyond gynecologic cancers. And I couldn't be more excited to participate, and I'm just grateful for people like Dr. Benbrook and her team, who Dr. Contreras is here, who've really stayed the course. 25 years of work, holy cow. So perseverance, I think, will pay off, and I hope you're as equally as excited as we are. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Our final presenter today has a very unique perspective of what having a trial like this means to patients. Dina Newlin is a patient here at OU Health Stephenson Cancer Center and has been participating in a clinical trial. Please welcome Dina and her special guest, Tripod Petey.
You may or may not want to get out. Hi, everybody. Let's see if this guy decides he wants to sit still. Well, I am honored to be here today. As a recipient of a clinical trial I'm currently in the midst of, literally I'm 16 treatments out of 32, so I'm right in the very middle of a stage 4 ovarian cancer drug. And look at me, I don't look sick. I don't look sick at all. That's not to say that I didn't experience a lot of these side effects that they were talking about. I mean, yeah, you can never judge a book by its cover. I experienced aphasia, where they thought I had a stroke, and I had word salad and couldn't speak for a few days. Had adrenaline insufficiency syndrome for months and months, lived on prednisone, passed out into Dr. Richardson's arms one day, got put on an ambulance straight from here over to OU, where I stayed for a week or two. So the drugs, although they do have a benefit, there is a downside. So something like this, oh my God, I mean, wow. I have a BRCA1 mutation. BRCA1 gives me an 84% likelihood of getting breast cancer once I survive this ovarian cancer. I also have a daughter who, and a niece and a sister and a nephew. My mother has been tested, she's negative, so we know this came from Dad's side probably, but there's no way to know for sure. But something like this, if Dr. Benbrook can get this thing going, if my daughter ends up being positive, this can save her life, and she won't have to maybe go through chemo. Maybe she won't have to go through all this. I mean, that kid at 17 was taking care of me. She was my primary caregiver, and that's a lot to put on a kid. So, you guys are amazing. I'm an OSU graduate, so, I mean, me and OU haven't really always gone along. I went to vet school at OSU, but I now love OU. OU has saved my life, and I told everybody, as long as they save my life, I am now a fan. So I will have an OU T-shirt. If anybody wants to give me one, I'll wear it. And all my OSU people are like, what? But hey, I'm alive. So clinical trials are important, and I think we need to recognize that it's a sacrifice, yes, because you're taking a drug and you don't know what it's going to do to you. You have no idea. But it's also when they say you're stage 4 ovarian and you've got 4 months to live, if you don't start active chemo today, you go, oh, okay, yeah, I'll start chemo, and I'll take whatever drug they've got. Desperation will make you do whatever. So I'm doing really, really well, and I feel very blessed. Every day is a bonus day for me. Literally, every day is a bonus day. And I just had my second bonus birthday, so that was pretty incredible. But people like you guys that get together, you do research, you're amazing. I've got a degree in science, but all I ever did was teach high school science. So I do have some nurses that actually work for OU that used to be my students. So I've always been about research, I've always been about science, and when they gave me an opportunity, and I was diagnosed at a different facility, a different hospital group, referred to another hospital group, and that group was Mercy, and they said, no, ovarian cancer, you need to go to OU. So thank goodness that everybody knew that it's here in my backyard. I mean, I know people that have to travel states to do this, and it's so disruptive. One of my best friends is a 3-time Hodgkin's leukemia survivor that was treated here at OU and has had Hodgkin's 3 times. Still alive 25 years later, but the cumulative effects on her body have been tremendous. She just lost a leg last month after a major heart attack, which she was in the hospital for 58 days. So at age 55, losing a leg is never something you want to do. But she'd had radiation, she'd had chemo 3 times. So the effects of this, cumulative long-term, even if you don't die from cancer, you usually die from something related to your treatment. So if they can do this stuff, I mean, we can wipe this out, and people don't have to go through what I went through. And I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm doing great. So I just want to thank everybody that has taken the time to work here. You guys are rock stars. I mean, come on. I'm alive because of some of you guys. And I will continue to be alive for a very long time. I'm not going anywhere. That kid's 19 now. She still needs me. She may not know that. but she still needs me. So I don't, and this dude, I mean, you know, I got diagnosed in the middle of a pandemic, so I couldn't have anybody with me. So isolation was a huge factor for me. And this young man kept me from being alone. You know, dogs are amazing. He is especially amazing because he's cross-trained as my service dog. So when I started to have like little panic attacks or whatever, being hooked up to chemo and having hot flashes and freaking out, not being able to breathe during active chemo, this guy would like crawl up in my lap and just made everything better. So if you don't have a dog, get one. Because, you know, there's lots of rescue dogs. Don't pay lots of money for a dog. Get a rescue dog. And they'll bring you a lot of love. But he's a certified therapy dog with Alliance of Therapy Dogs, so he has a right to be in the building. He's been approved. He's been approved as my service dog, and he is actually going to be actively on staff here as a therapy dog very soon. So that's all I've got, and thank you all. He just had knee surgery.
Petey had a few things he wanted to say. Thank you so much, Dina, for sharing your story with us. It's stories like this that make all of this work just so meaningful, and it's the reason why we all are in healthcare. This wraps up today's media briefing. I'd like to thank all of our special guests for coming today, our media friends, you're great partners, and so we want to make sure that if you have extra questions or would like to have additional interviews of our speakers, we are available after the briefing. You can just come right up over here to the front, and our media team will work with you on that. So thank you again, everybody, for being here. Have a wonderful day.